like to turn to Luke chapter 7, looking at the miracles of Christ. I'd like to read verses 11 through 17. And it came to pass the day after that he, Jesus, went into a city called Nain. Many of his disciples went with him, and much people. Now when he came nigh to the gate of the city, behold, there was a dead man carried out, the only son of his mother. She was a widow, and much people of the city was with her. And when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her, and said unto her, Weep not. And he came and touched the bier, and they that bare him stood still. And he said, Young man, I say unto thee, arise. And he that was dead sat up and began to speak. And he delivered him to his mother. And there came a fear on all, and they glorified God, saying, that a great prophet is risen up among us, and that God hath visited his people. And this rumor of him went forth throughout all Judea, and throughout all the region round about. Luke is the only one who gives account of what is recorded here, the raising of a widow's son. It begins with a time indicator, the day after. The day after. That would be the day following the healing of the centurion's servant. So, these two miracles, Christ healing a centurion's servant, and Christ raising to life the son of a widow woman, are quite different. They're very, very different miracles. The one, of course, involves a servant of a Gentile. The other involves probably a Jewish family. The one is solicited, the other is not. In the case of the centurion, Jesus heals without seeing the servant, without any touch of hand. And in the other, what's before us here, Jesus comes, he sees, and he touches. The one, the case of the centurion, involves sickness. The other moves beyond sickness to death. Two entirely different sets of circumstance. Two entirely different people. Two entirely different needs. And the recorded miracles of Christ, and not all are recorded, cover a wide spectrum of circumstance, people, and needs. And they serve as a declaration and a reminder that he is able, no matter what the circumstance, no matter who the people, no matter the need. The wide spectrum of Christ's miracles teach us that Jesus Christ is who he is, regardless of the situation, regardless of the people, regardless of the need. And he is the master. And He is the answer to every situation, to every people, to every need. So the recorded miracles of Christ are designed to reveal to us, first and foremost, the person of Jesus Christ, who He is. They are also for the purpose, they show us that He is God, that He is almighty, that He is able, that He is the omniscient one, that He is the Lord of all, the deliverer, and He's God's remedy, regardless of circumstance, people, or need. The recorded miracles of Christ are designed to reveal to us the inconceivable ability of Christ and the universal scope of His authority and the infinity of His fullness. These revealed miracles of Christ are designed to show what a difference Jesus makes, revealing to us the transforming power of Christ. Again, the text opens with it being the day following the healing of the centurion's servant. And Jesus and many of His disciples, the apostles would be included in that group, and much people, have now come to the gate of the city of Nain. At the same time, there was another procession of people arriving at the gate, and they're leaving the city. We read there was a dead man carried out of the city, of course, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and much people of the city was with her. And it is here that Luke tells us of a miraculous event involving Jesus and a widowed mother and her son. And what we read here serves as a monument. It's monumental. It's marvelous. It's a magnificent illustration and a display of the wonder of Jesus Christ. And in it, of course, as in all the miracles of Christ, is great encouragement and serves as a source of hope. And it's a matter of awe. It's a matter of praise. So what we see here, there is a picture of need. We see this in all of His miracles, whether they be miracles of healing or whether they be miracles over nature. In every single one of them, there is a picture of need. In the account, the scene is a funeral procession of the only son of a widow woman. There are a multitude of people with her. The mother, the widow woman, would have been in front. And she would have been followed by those who carried the body of her son. Behind them were those who were mourning the death of her son, relatives and friends. Behind these would be the people of the city who had stopped what they were doing and out of respect had joined the procession as it made its way through the city. So you have a line of people. They're weeping and mourning because of death. It's a scene marked by sadness. It's a scene marked by distress and pain. And Luke says that there was a dead man carried out. His body would have been wrapped in the grave clothes. And we learn from verse 14 that he was carried upon what is called a bier, which was simply a wooden plank. It would be the equivalent to caskets today. But it's just a wooden plank. We also see from verse 14 that he was a young man. How young was he? We don't know. Secret things belong to the Lord. Looking back to verse 12, we're told that he was the only son of his mother. So it is a languid, mournful funeral procession. There are people, there she is in the front, those carrying the wooden plank following, and the vast majority following from behind. And they're on their way to the cemetery to entomb her only son. In this procession, there are many needs. More needs than you and I know about. There are overwhelming needs, not just of the widow woman, but in the entire procession, there are overwhelming needs. These are needs beyond the ability and the power of the people. So as one views this procession, the central figure in the procession is a widow woman. This is seen from the fact that at the mention of the one who had died, verse 12, he is identified as the only son of his mother. She's the emphasis. And then by way of further description, we read, she was a widow. And in mentioning the other people in the procession, in verse 12, it is as, and much people of the city was with her. Her. And when it comes to describing Jesus' entrance into the scene, verse 13, it is, when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her, and said unto her. She's the central figure in this procession. And she's a picture of desperate need. She had a sorrowful past. It's stated in verse 12, she was a widow. She'd been in other funeral processions. She had experienced the death and funeral of her husband. And she was known in the city of Nain as a widow. That was her identity. Now she has a very painful present. It's also stated there in verse 12, there was a dead man carried out, the only son of his mother. Once again, she is faced with the death of a loved one. She is participating in the funeral of her only son. She, no doubt, is experiencing the pain of bearing a child. This is not like the funeral procession of her husband. You know in your mind that you may one day be in the funeral procession of your spouse. You do not expect to be in the funeral procession of your child. In other words, it is something that never feels natural. There's something natural about the death of a spouse, the death of a parent. But this never seems natural. The death of a child. The only son of his mother. This woman who loved her son with the special and unique love of a mother, which is a love that is unwavering, sacrificial, patient, sympathetic. So we see her there. She has the tender and caring heart of a mother. But on this day, her heart is aching. She is greatly pained, overwhelmed and overcome with sorrow, distress, and affliction. We see her there, a widow. And now, her only son has died. She has no husband to share with her great grief. And though there are many people gathered with her, and they're there to comfort her, and they're there to help her, none of them could fully provide the need of this hour. None could. Again, it is a languid, mournful funeral procession. And each step is bringing her closer to a very dreadful moment, the arrival at the cemetery and the burial of her only son. So you look at her. She's surrounded by people. Yet I promise you, she feels a loneliness that she's never felt before. And as you look at her, she is physically and emotionally drained. She is in a place of great distress, a place of sorrow and agony and heartache, a place of weakness, a place of death, a place of helplessness. Her needs are many. Her needs are desperate. So she's had a sorrowful past. She has having a painful present. And she had a bleak future. Verse 12 again, there was a dead man carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. Those are very sad words. A dead man, the only son of a widow. Already a widow, and now, in all probability, her only means of support for the future is gone. In Israel, the social standing came through the male role, and the women who had no family were left basically without recourse. They would have to depend on other male relatives for their personal care, and that was not always a reliable system. As long as her husband had lived, he would take care of her. And she would have a home. And she would be provided for. and she would have loving care, and she would have a companion. And when he died, she still had the comfort of knowing that her son would provide for her, that he would protect and that he would care for her, and that she would probably become a part of his family. But now he has died. And humanly speaking, her future appeared to be one of dread, loneliness, and poverty. She's in dire straits. Her needs are desperate. Her needs are urgent. So that's the scene. Consider what Jesus did on this occasion. He came to where she was. Again, unsolicited. He came to where she was. A mournful funeral procession. A scene of sadness. A scene of unbearable pain. And though this widow woman had many people with her who were trying to comfort her, trying to bring some relief to her, they are very limited in what they can do. And each step, again, is just bringing her closer to the entombment of her son. The friends of this woman, though they cared and desired to bring her some relief, they couldn't change the outcome of this procession. They could bring no change. But unknown to this widow, who has lost her only son to death, each step of that funeral procession was not just bringing her closer to the cemetery. It was bringing her closer to the only one who could help her. It was bringing her closer to the life-giving Savior. And Jesus steps into her pain and into her grief. The crowd around the widow woman was large, but Jesus took notice of her. And He took notice of her broken heart. The procession was moving toward a dead end, a point of finality. But Jesus intercepted it. He has the final word. He always does. He has the final word. So He came to where she was. It says He saw her. It is declared in verse 12 that He came nigh to the gate of that city. The whole reason that He's headed to Nain was what He did for this particular widow woman. Now He has arrived at the gate of the city. And verse 13 says, and when the Lord saw her, the Lord saw her. This is much more than, and the Lord caught a glimpse of her. It is, He saw her. He saw her. Between He and her, between those two words, is something that He did. He saw her. How did He see her? Well, He saw her with an eye of grace, with an eye of mercy, with an eye of love. Out of all the people around her, He saw her. He saw her. And He knew. And He understood everything that was upon her mind. He knew it all. And He understood it all. He knew and He understood all that was in her heart. He knew and understood her suffering. He knew and understood her faintness, her weariness. He knew and He understood her fears and her sorrow and her distress and the depths of her misery. He knew and understood the depths of her agony and her pain and her disappointment and the emptiness that she was feeling. He knew. People say all the time, they should never say it, but they say it all the time. I know what you're feeling. I know what you're going through. No, you don't. You may have had a similar experience, but you still don't know what that person's feeling. Quit making it about yourself. There's only one who knows. And that's the Lord. And He's there that day without being invited. Oh, how thankful we ought to be when Jesus shows up uninvited. And He's there. And He's there, has everything that she needs. And He's there to bring relief and joy to her soul. And He's there to transform the entire situation. Notice also, again, He came to her. He saw her. He felt compassion toward her. Everyone in that crowd had compassion toward her, I'm sure. But as declared in verse 13, He had compassion on her. That's different than her neighbor having compassion. That's different than her friends and her relatives having compassion. He, who came uninvited, had compassion on her. There are 5 miracles of Christ where His compassion is specifically mentioned. You have the feeding of over 5,000. You have the feeding of over 4,000. You have the healing of the blind man in Matthew 20. You have the healing of a leper in Mark chapter 1. You have the liberation of a demon-possessed man of Gadara. And you have this raising of a widow's son. He meets this mournful funeral procession. He saw this widow woman, and He had compassion on her. He knew everything there was to know about her past. He knew everything there was to know about her present. He knew everything there was to know about her future. And He felt within Himself a feeling of pity, a feeling of sympathy, a feeling of empathy, a feeling of concern and love toward this woman. The compassion of Christ really is the communication of divine mercy. The communication of God's grace. So he has compassion toward her. He also spoke to her a word of comfort. In verse 13 he says, "Weep not." Considering the circumstance, that would seem to be very strange words. Weep not. Would appear to be inappropriate words. I wouldn't suggest you go to a funeral and tell the relatives, "Stop crying." It's not wise. Considering the circumstance, they appear to manifest a lack of feeling. They appear to manifest indifference. But they're anything but. With these words, Jesus is not rebuking her weeping. He's not rebuking her expressing sorrow. But with compassion, her pain in his heart, he says, "Weep not." What he's doing is he's assuring her, as only he can, the help you need is here. The help you need is here. And everything's going to be okay. Why? Because I'm here. Everything was going to be okay because he was about to remove the point of sorrow. It was as if he said, "I'm here now. You can stop crying." The one who can is there. And he says compassionately to her, as only he can, "Weep not." And I believe immediately she senses his compassion in those words. And she hears his compassion in his tone. And the peace that passeth understanding floods her soul. And she knows. Her son's still on the bier. She knows. She knows because Jesus is there. All is well. All is well. Jesus has interrupted this dreadful procession in a way that only he can. Then notice, he touched the bier, the casket, if you will, and he spoke to the dead. In verse 14, he came and touched the bier. Jesus reaches forth. Jesus has come. He has come with compassion. And now he reaches forth. And he touches the wooden plank. I believe that was just a sign that he's about to do something. As a result, we read, they that bare or carried him, the son of the widow, they stood still. The entire procession has come to a halt. and with the entire funeral procession at a standstill, Jesus said, young man, speaking directly to the one who was dead, notice it's not just young man arise. That's the gist, but it's more than that. Young man, Jesus, God in the flesh, say unto thee, with power and authority, arise! And with that word, there was the transformation of life. At that very instant, life entered into that young man's body. And there was a change. The change didn't take effect until life entered into his body. Jesus, the very one who spoke the universe into existence and upholds all things by the word of his power, speaks life unto this young man. And then we read, and he that was dead, he's no longer dead. He hasn't risen off the plank yet, but he's not dead now. And he that was dead, so life has been imparted. He's no longer dead, and as a result, he sat up. He sat up. You've never been to a procession like that. No one else had either in that group. He sat up. And he did so instantly. He did so completely. Without any struggle. No one had to take him by his hand and help him up. He sat up. For him to do so, he had to come out of what was holding him. The grave clothes. He had to come out of those. And this he did. By the power of Christ. And then it is declared that he began to speak. There was a transformation. It was manifest. It was visible. Everybody could see it. And then Jesus, verse 15, brought him to his mother. The whole scene has changed. The entire scene has now changed. He gets up off the bier, and Jesus walks him over to his mother. And I am sure that mother and son embraced. Imagine the reunion. And it's all because of Jesus. The entire scene has changed. The distress, the agony, the grief, the anxiety, the fear, the dread of getting to the cemetery is all turned to joy and jubilation because of Jesus. There was unspeakable joy. No one in that multitude could take credit. No one in that multitude was given credit. It was all him. Death was transformed into life because of Jesus. Because of Jesus, the Son was set free from death, set free from the grave clothes. This young man is a monument of what Jesus can do. And for the rest of his life, he could testify, because of Jesus I am. For the rest of his life. Weren't you dead once? Because of Jesus, I'm alive. All of this serves as a picture of the grace and power of Christ saving us all. There we were, dead in trespasses and sins. Alive physically, but dead spiritually. This young man, in his physical death, is a picture of what spiritual death is all about. The young man in the miracle was there physically. His body was on the bier. But he couldn't hear the cries of his mother. He was dead. He couldn't see the mourning and grieving. The mourning and the grieving had no effect upon him. Why? He was dead. His body was being carried to the cemetery. He didn't know it, and he didn't care. And that's how it is with us in spiritual death. In the spiritual realm, we didn't know and we didn't care. In the physical realm, all the things of the earth, all the things associated with physical life, they had no effect upon him. Nothing in that procession had effect upon him. He's dead. That's how it was with you and I spiritually. But life was imparted. But God, even when we were dead in sins, hath quickened us, has made us alive. And then you see verse 16 of our text, and there came a fear and awe, and they glorified God. He's to get all the glory. Well, why should he get all the glory? Because he did it all. That's why. That's why. Well, shouldn't somebody in the crowd get some credit? No. And it would be blasphemy to give anybody in that crowd credit. They were there when it happened. That's all they can claim. So the fact that this particular miracle followed the healing of the centurion's servant, which we looked at last week, is a manifestation that he's willing. Jesus is willing to reach every spectrum of society, rich and poor, high and low, both men and women. This particular miracle shows that he's greater. He's greater than any condition. He's greater than any circumstance. He's greater than any problem. He's greater than any difficulty, any trial or need. He is the living, conquering, triumphant, overcoming one. And he can, whatever the situation, always remember that. He can. He can. And thank the Lord for all the times in your life that he has shown up uninvited. Uninvited. Brother Ben, if you'll come and lead us.